time for you guys to check her out. This is her shot at the semifinals. Here's Courtney Hadwin.
The shocking audition that froze Simon Cowell in what has now become one of the most unforgettable moments in America's Got Talent history. Viewers around the world witnessed the usually unflappable Simon Cowell brought to the edge of tears, not by a tragedy or personal revelation, but by the raw, electrifying talent of a 13-year-old girl named Courtney Hadwin. The performance took place during season 13 of AGT, where Courtney, an unassuming, awkward teenager from County Durham, England, stepped onto the stage in a nervous hush. The judges expected another shy attempt from a child performer, but the second the first note of Otis Redding's Hard to Handle came out of her mouth, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The crowd erupted, gasps turned into standing ovation, but the most striking reaction came from Simon Cowell himself, known for his cold critiques and unemotional demeanor. Cowell leaned back in his chair as though physically struck by what he was hearing. His eyes widened, his signature poker face cracked, and though he didn't leap up to clap, the silence from him was louder than applause. It was the silence of being floored by brilliance. After Courtney's performance ended, he leaned in and simply said, "You sing, and you're like a lion." But it wasn't just a compliment, it was a moment of truth, an acknowledgement that something extremely rare had just occurred. When Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer and Courtney fell to her knees in shock, the confetti rained down not just on a talented young girl, but on the birth of a phenomenon. Within hours, her audition clip went viral, racking up millions of views online and launching conversations in music forums, news outlets, and living rooms alike. The world had just met a force they weren't ready for, and as the lights dimmed and the stage cleared, the question burned across every screen: who was this girl who made Simon Cowell look like he might cry? Little did anyone know that was only the beginning of a story far more complex, emotional, and heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. From small-town girl to viral sensation before the world ever knew her name, Courtney Hadwin was just another quiet child growing up in Hesleden, a small mining village tucked in England's County Durham. Born on July 6, 2004, she was raised by her parents Paul and Anne-Marie alongside her siblings Paul Jr. and Melissa, in a modest home where music became her personal escape. From an early age, her mother noticed Courtney's unusual vocal power, but it wasn't until a viral video of her singing "Say Something" at a school open mic took off locally on Facebook that things started to change. Inspired by child stars like Connie Talbot, Courtney began busking in the streets to pay for singing lessons. Her grandfather would later reveal that every coin she earned was reinvested into her dream, funding vocal training across multiple institutions, including Shotton Hall Theatre School and Vocal Ovation by Julie Mile. What followed was a flurry of local accolades, including becoming a finalist in Beyond the Lights Awards, performing for crowds of 18,000 and even opening for Sister Sledge at just 12 years old. Then came The Voice Kids UK, where she blazed through the competition with renditions of Tina Turner and James Brown classics. Even then, critics noted she had something that couldn't be taught, an old soul grit and vocal dynamism far beyond her year. Yet no one could have predicted that this small-town prodigy was about to go viral on a scale few teens could ever imagine. Her path to America's Got Talent wasn't just a lucky break. It was the culmination of years of sacrifices, side gigs, family support, and relentless determination by a young girl who knew the world didn't hand out opportunities. You had to sing for them, and sing she did, louder than her small village could contain. AGT changes everything, or does it? When Courtney Hadwin finally walked onto the AGT stage in 2018, few realized they were watching the beginning of a media whirlwind. At 13, she not only captivated millions, but demolished every preconceived notion of what a child performer could be. Her audition videos surpassed 310 million views in record time, catapulting her from obscurity to international fame almost overnight. Judges compared her to Janis Joplin, calling her a reincarnation of the blues rock icon. Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer. Fans flooded social media. Journalists scrambled for interviews. Producers drooled over the next big sensation. But behind the flashing lights and instant fame, something more complex was unfolding. Courtney had arrived, yes, but so had expectations. Every performance during the AGT season added pressure. New songs, new outfits, media appearances, and a growing legion of followers demanding more. By the time she reached the finals, she was considered a global phenomenon. And then came the twist. Courtney finished in 6th place. A shocking upset that left fans confused, but also reminded everyone watching that in show business, talent doesn't always guarantee victory. Still, AGT had done its job. It put Courtney on the map. The offers rolled in. Interviews poured in, and with one signature, she crossed over from viral star to recording artist, or so the industry thought. The record deal that should have made her a star after AGT. Simon Cowell moved quickly to secure Courtney's future, or at least that's what it looked like on paper. In late 2018, Cowell signed her to his label Psycho Music in partnership with Arista Records. Headlines hailed the move as a dream come true. A teenage prodigy with raw power and a label with global influence. What could possibly go wrong? But inside the polished boardrooms and glossy press releases, a different story was unfolding. Courtney, only 14 at the time, found herself thrust into a music industry not built for children. The contract meant she now had to deliver not just passion, but polish. Songs had to be marketable. Interviews had to be rehearsed. Studio sessions ran on adult schedules, not teen energy. While public statements suggested excitement, privately Courtney began to feel the cracks. Suddenly her voice was no longer entirely hers. Branding consultants shaped her image. Producers nudged her toward a modern Janis Joplin sound. Expectations soared higher than her confidence. It was no longer about singing from the soul, it was about fitting into a system, and the system didn't pause for teenage growing pains. The record deal may have promised stardom, but for Courtney Hadwin, it came with the high cost of growing up too fast in a world that demanded she stop being a child and start being a product. Behind the curtains, burnout, pressure, and loss of identity beneath the stage lights and backstage interviews, Courtney Hadwin was quietly unraveling. The same industry that had labeled her a generational talent now boxed her into deadlines, media circuits, and carefully controlled narratives. Behind the scenes, she was constantly traveling between the UK and LA from studio to studio, while being fed a steady diet of co-writers, marketing teams, and musical molds. Creative freedom was replaced with branding session. Instead of writing her own songs, she was pushed into rehearsing tracks that didn't feel like her own. As the machine of fame spun faster, Courtney's grip on her identity weakened. She later confessed to feeling like a character in someone else's story. Interviews were tightly managed. Photo shoots were stylized to fit a certain look. Everything became about maintaining momentum rather than preserving meaning. Her powerful voice remained, but the joy behind it began to flicker. The pressure to perform was relentless, and despite the roaring applause, her mental exhaustion grew. For a teenager still discovering who she was, the industry's demands didn't leave room to breathe. Courtney wasn't just burning out, she was fading behind the very persona that made her famous. Where did Courtney go? The sudden silence, and then, without warning, she was gone. No big farewell, no media statement, just silence. Her social media activity dropped to a whisper. Public appearances stopped entirely. Fans, once spoiled with updates, were left refreshing feeds and digging through old clips. Rumors exploded online. Had she been dropped? Was she sick, injured, depressed? Speculation filled the void left by her absence, and the industry said nothing to stop it. For someone once labeled the voice of a generation, the vacuum of updates became deafening. But the truth was more human than dramatic. Courtney wasn't missing. She was retreating. Away from the cameras, away from the pressure. She was trying to remember who she was before the contracts, before the viral fame. As fans whispered theories, Courtney was regaining control of her story. Quietly, in private writing sessions and solo vocal recordings, she began healing the fractured bond between her soul and her sound. The quiet break from Simon Cowell. For many, Simon Cowell appeared to be Courtney's great champion, her gatekeeper to global fame. But over time, that illusion faded. Cowell had signed her, yes, but mentorship, emotional support, that was never part of the deal. As the months wore on and Courtney's fame stalled, Cowell remained publicly silent. No press statements, no collaborative performances, no check-ins during her creative withdrawal. It became clear their relationship was contractual, not personal. Courtney wasn't bitter, at least not publicly, but observers noted the absence of his guidance as her struggles mounted. Fans who once praised the partnership began asking, did Simon help her or did he use her? And as Courtney stepped back into the shadows, Simon moved on to the next talent, the next season, the next buzzer. Their story had started with a bang, but it ended not with betrayal, but with indifference. In an industry driven by moments, Courtney had become just that, yesterday's moment. Rebirth. Courtney's independent return. The silence didn't last forever. In 2025, Courtney Hadwin re-emerged, not as a viral child prodigy, but as an independent artist with something to say. Teaming up with Grammy-winning producer Kevin Bowe, known for working with Etta James and Joe Cocker, Courtney returned to the studio on her terms. The result was not a polished pop product, but a raw, honest explosion of emotion and truth. Songs like Monsters, You Only Love Me When I Lie, and That Girl Don't Live Here tackled pain, vulnerability, betrayal, and identity. No longer filtered for radio play, but carved directly from lived experience. Her upcoming project, Little Miss Jagged, became a symbol of this rebirth. Critics raved about the authenticity, fans returned in droves, and Courtney, now 20, spoke openly in interviews about the suffocating years she spent under industry control. No more producers telling her what to sound like. No more executives treating her like a product. This was Courtney, unfiltered, unbranded, and finally in charge. Simon's silent regret? Then came the rumors. Viral clips claimed that Simon Cowell, in a rare moment of reflection, had admitted on camera that we failed her and expected too much too soon. No mainstream outlet confirmed it, but the footage was compelling. He paused mid-interview, his voice cracked. And for once, the man known for being emotionally untouchable looked haunted. Whether it was real or manufactured, the moment struck a nerve, because behind the speculation was a hard truth. The system built to discover stars often forgets to protect them. If Cowell did indeed express regret, it was already too late. The damage had been done. Courtney's story had already become a cautionary tale about what happens when the music industry prioritizes marketability over humanity. And in her new music, listeners could hear not just artistry, but aftermath. Where is Courtney now? Today, Courtney Hadwin is no longer the wide-eyed teen trembling before a panel of judges. She is a woman who has crawled out from under the weight of premature fame, industry exploitation, and personal identity loss. At 20, her new music speaks louder than any PR campaign ever could. Her album Little Miss Jagged, due September 12, 2025, has already been hailed as her most fearless and personal work yet. The stripped-down mic-less performance of You Only Love Me When I Lie left viewers stunned, not because of the notes, but because of the story behind them. Courtney is no longer singing to be discovered, she's singing to be heard, to be understood, to reclaim the power that was once taken from her under the guise of opportunity. Her career now unfolds on her terms, and while the industry may have moved on, her fans, both old and new, are still listening. Because now, finally, so is she.